we are continuing to follow this Apple event, getting more headlines from the company in terms of new products that we're going to see from Apple, new MacBook Pros more specifically, and the increases that they've made in terms of capabilities, high-res graphics, microphones and speakers, et cetera, et cetera. Obviously, thinness is important here as well. Julie Ask of Forrester Research and Tay Kim of Bloomberg Opinion are still with us to talk about what we've learned. Tay, let me kick it off here with you. What are the most important headlines that you're seeing cross about the MacBook Pro?
I think the biggest headline is millions of creative professionals are probably cheering that Apple is actually listening to them. We've had this trend where Apple would simplify their devices to make them look cooler, but then you would have to add all these dongles and add all these cables. Now, Apple is adding more ports back to their MacBook Pros. They added an HDMI port, an SD card where you could just put your memory card in, and they got rid of the touch bar and put in the physical keys like Mark Gurman reported. So they're actually listening to their customers and adding convenience back to their laptops. So I'm sure tons of creative professionals are screaming with like joy right now because they're adding ports back.
And Julie, presumably some portion of the consumer market will also be happy about that. But is Apple getting the balance right here? Because we did see this massive, and Forrester has quantified the massive spend on technology at home. Is this hitting that market well, too?
Yeah, so, after listening to the announcements over the past half hour or so, I'm going to go all in with Tay here and say I do believe, given the enhanced performance, the speed, all of the changes that they've made, I do believe that this is targeted primarily at a professional community. Think about developers, gaming developers. This is all about speed, some battery efficiency and so forth. But I think, I haven't seen the price points come through yet. Maybe you have those, but I think we're going to see these priced, somewhere between like $2,000, $3,000 for the baseline models. My guess would be for these. And I think that price is a little bit out of the consumer market. What will be interesting to see is, what chips are in the minis and some of the products oriented more towards a family or the consumer at home.
In terms of market share, Julie, does that change very much with Apple products? I mean, I feel like you're either an Apple user or you're not. And it's usually, at least in terms of desktop setups, it's about 10% ever since I started covering the company.
Yeah, so I think that, it tends to be true. I think what's different, though, is today is, let's say like 15, 20 years ago, that might have been 10% of the U.S. audience. But now as we look more globally, whether it's in China, Canada, the U.K., and other markets, certainly Apple tends to grow there. Apple has also done a good job of introducing, what we call, lower priced products, whether it's the Air, the lower priced tablets, lower priced watches, lower priced smartphones that do help to bring more consumers into the Apple ecosystem, so to speak. Certainly part of their strategy, though.
And, of course, in that ecosystem, in music, Tay, we got those announcements on music. There was an intraday reaction for Spotify stock that told a tale. But we've also seen a climb back from that big, steep jump down. So when you take it into the totality of what Apple's saying on music, how important is it? How much of a threat to its competitors is it?
So they announced this $5 plan, which is 50% off their normal plan that's controlled by voice. I don't think that's going to be a big market changer, so that's probably why the market moved in that fashion. But I also want to emphasize they announced two new Mac Silicon chips, M1 Pro and M1 Max, and it's 70% faster than last year's version. So I think that's a big deal. Everyone talked about the Apple ecosystem, but I think Apple's biggest competitive differentiator is their in-house silicon chip manufacturing, chip design capabilities, and they're showing that they make the best chips in the world, the most power efficient, the best performing. And today's announcement shows that they still have what it takes.
If they're converting anybody, Julie, I'm guessing they're converting the high-end customers, right? Because otherwise, as I said, either you're in the ecosystem and you love it or you're not.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Apple has always been either through design or been lucky. It's always had a relatively affluent consumer base as well that can afford to do upgrades, afford to buy more products in the ecosystem. And then again, we see geographically, we see growth, and otherwise we see growth, within the family, buying watches, smartphones, devices, tablets, for children and teenagers and so forth. But yeah, absolutely agree with you, Matt.